Okay, this lesson is going to offer you some guidance on how to answer the exam question for task 5C, which is assessing a route. So I'm going to give you some top tips on how you should answer it, and I would use this guidance to make sure you target the full range of marks available. So let's have a little, first of all, look at the question. The question is as follows. The United Kingdom government has given the go-ahead for a second high-speed railway service known as HS2. Phase 1 between London and Birmingham is due for the completion in 2026. However, not everyone is pleased with this decision. Study the Ordnance Survey map extract of the Birmingham area, diagram Q12A, diagram Q12B, diagram Q12C, and diagram Q12D before answering this question. Okay, now before I go any further and look at the question, remember one of the first most important things is that you use all of the sources you are given. You should use the Ordnance Survey map along with grid reference to support the evidence you get from that, as well as quoting directly evidence from the 4 diagrams that you've been given. That involves lifting something from the source and using it in your answer. Okay. So the question goes and actually tells us, referring to evidence from the OS map extract and other information from the sources, discuss. What are the 2 questions? Well, the first one is the advantages and disadvantages of the proposed route of the HS2 line and any possible impacts on the surrounding area. Now, as this question is very similar to questions we've already seen on the site of a development, the only real difference is the fact that a route covers a much wider range of areas. So in theory, a route actually gives us a lot more that we could possibly discuss when we come to writing our answers. Now, this question is a 20-mark question, which means you do not need to target 10 marks for the first part and 10 for the second. You can target far more marks for the first part and less for the second, or the other way around. That's the first thing. Second thing is you are allowed to write both answers as one big, large answer if you choose to do so, and the majority of students generally do choose to do so, and that will still allow you to access full marks. Another thing you should also know that 4 of the 20 marks will come from giving direct evidence. So, for example, giving relevant grid references. That means you've got to still come up with 16 points that target the 2 questions. So let's just have a little look at the exam question itself. The likely thing is you're going to open the map first. And the first thing you will notice on the map is the HS2 is marked here with this dashed black line. We will find later on what this red square represents. It actually represents a brand new station they're going to build for the high-speed rail link. And then we can see the high-speed rail link heading further north, and part of it's dividing northwards because that's going to link up with other cities, which we'll also look at later on, as well as part of the high-speed rails heading into the center of Birmingham. Okay. Now, before we leave the map, it's very likely, considering both questions, you're going to want to think about the following. When you think about the suitability, the advantages and disadvantages, consider, is this a rail link crossing flat land? Okay, if not, then they're going to have to make a lot of cutting. There's going to have to be a lot of engineering. If it's crossing rivers, that's going to involve a lot of bridging. Consider anything it passes through, like roads, that will therefore need to be adjusted if there's a rail link going over them. Likewise, any existing railway lines or settlements that might be impacted, either that it's going through or it's running right next to. Okay. Also consider things like any natural things that it's passing near or through that will be in any way habitats that might be damaged. So I would start down here and investigate everything that lies around or right on the actual route, because they could all be evidence about the advantages and disadvantages. Okay. As you look, a route, generally stick with your evidence that's quite close. So we've got an exhibition center here. We've got an airport over here. These are going to be things that should factor in your answer. Think about the positive impacts it might have on communities, on local businesses. Would it have an impact on the environment? And so on. Okay, so there's lots of ideas I've given you on answering certainly the first part as well as the second part. Let's just have a little look at some of the other sources. So this source here shows us Birmingham with this high-speed rail interlink. And we can see that it was extending north. We could actually see it heading a little bit north on the map we were given. And that's because in the future, by 2032, it will hook up with Manchester and Leeds. The one that they're planning on building, and they are indeed actually building it at the moment, is the one that connects up with London. And then we can see down here, we're given a further bit of information that there's High Speed 1 has already been completed, and that connects with the Channel Tunnel. Okay, so you would be expected to at least lift one piece of information from this source. Likewise, you're given some information here from a statement on HS2. You should be lifting one piece of information and using it to answer one of the parts of the question. This source here shows us the surrounding area. It shows us the route. It now tells us for the first time that this is a railway station. We didn't actually know that from the Ordnance Survey map itself, but we are now given that information. We can see Birmingham Airport marked here, as well as the motorway networks that are connecting in the area. We can also see these two areas are indicated: Chelmsley Wood, the Birmingham interchange, and Balsall Common and Hampton in Arden down here. Now, we're given those two because the next source is a graph, diagram Q12D, and it gives us some key bits of data about community responses by local residents who live in the Birmingham interchange and Chelmsley Wood area and the Balsall Common and Hampton Arden. And we can see that there are 6 things that they've obviously been asked, and we can see the numbers of people that responded with a concern. And you would be expected to at least lift one piece of data from this graph in your answer. And I would suggest, certainly for the second part of the exam question, it's likely you may lift more than one. But remember, you would need to explain the point in the context of the development. Okay, so there is a huge amount of points you can make to answer these 2 questions. You can answer them separately or as one big answer. Critical is every point must be linked to some piece of evidence and explained as asked in the question. Okay, so good luck, answer your question, and you will have it marked, and the mark out of 20 will be fed back to you.